Kindness is often spoken of as a simple virtue, but in reality, it is one of the most powerful forces that can shape a human life. When combined with motivation, kindness becomes more than just good behavior. It becomes a way of living, a quiet strength that carries a person through struggle, failure, and doubt. This story is about that strength. It is about how one ordinary person, living an ordinary life, chose kindness again and again, and how that choice slowly transformed his journey. This is not a story of instant success or dramatic miracles. It is a story of patience, perseverance, and purpose. The story begins in a large, fast-moving city where life never slowed down. People rushed through their days chasing deadlines, money, and recognition. In this city lived a man named Samuel. Samuel was not rich or influential. He worked at a mid-sized company as a data assistant, a role that required long hours and offered little appreciation. His apartment was small, his routine repetitive, and his dreams often felt far away. Like many people, Samuel carried responsibilities that weighed heavily on his mind: family expectations, financial pressure, and the fear of falling behind in a competitive world. Samuel had grown up in a modest household where kindness was considered a necessity, not a luxury. His parents struggled financially, but they never allowed hardship to turn them cold. His mother believed that kindness was a form of courage, and his father often said that the true measure of success was how you treated people when no one was watching. These lessons were planted early in Samuel's life, and even as the world around him became harsher, those values stayed rooted within him. Every morning, Samuel traveled to work on a crowded train. The train was always full of exhausted faces, quiet frustration, and unspoken tension. People avoided eye contact, guarding themselves emotionally as much as physically. Small disagreements were common, and patience was rare. Samuel felt the same stress as everyone else, but he made a conscious effort not to let it define him. He offered his seat to elderly passengers, helped tourists who looked lost, and apologized even when situations were not his fault. These actions were small, almost invisible, but they grounded him. They reminded him that even in chaos, he could choose who he wanted to be. At work, Samuel was surrounded by pressure. Targets had to be met, mistakes were criticized, and praise was scarce. Many colleagues focused only on their own advancement, often ignoring or undermining others. Samuel worked hard, but he also believed in collaboration. When coworkers struggled, he helped them understand tasks instead of judging them. When tensions rose, he chose calm communication over ego. Some people viewed his kindness as weakness, assuming he lacked ambition. Samuel heard these opinions, and at times they hurt. But he reminded himself that motivation driven by comparison is fragile, while motivation driven by purpose is enduring. There were moments when Samuel doubted himself deeply. Watching others rise faster made him question whether his approach was wrong. There were nights when exhaustion took over, and he wondered if kindness had any real value in a world that rewarded aggression. During those moments, Samuel reflected on his upbringing and reminded himself that becoming successful at the cost of his humanity would feel like failure. Motivation, he realized, was not about proving others wrong. It was about staying true to himself. One evening, after working late, Samuel noticed an elderly security guard sitting alone near the office entrance. The guard looked tired and unwell, yet continued working silently. Most employees passed by without noticing. Samuel stopped and started a conversation, offering him a warm drink. The guard shared that he was working extra shifts to support his family and pay medical bills. Samuel listened with empathy and respect. The next day, Samuel spoke to management about the guard's situation, helping arrange support and more reasonable shifts. It was a small act, but it made a meaningful difference. Life did not suddenly become easier for Samuel. Challenges continued to appear. A project he invested months of effort into was dismissed by senior management. Financial stress increased when rent rose unexpectedly. Motivation weakened, and discouragement crept in. During these periods, Samuel learned an important lesson. Motivation is not always enthusiasm or confidence. Sometimes it is simply discipline. It is showing up even when you feel tired, continuing even when progress feels invisible. Over time, Samuel's consistent behavior began to create subtle changes around him. Coworkers started approaching him for advice and support. Team members trusted him because he listened without judgment. When conflicts arose, Samuel often became the mediator, helping others see different perspectives. His kindness built trust, and trust built influence. Without realizing it, Samuel was developing leadership qualities, not through authority, but through empathy. A major turning point came when the company faced restructuring. Many employees feared layoffs, and anxiety filled the office. During this uncertain time, Samuel focused on supporting others rather than panicking. He helped colleagues prepare resumes, shared opportunities, and encouraged teamwork instead of competition. Management noticed his calm presence and positive influence. When leadership positions were evaluated, Samuel was offered a supervisory role. It was not because he demanded recognition, but because people respected him. With this new role came greater responsibility and pressure. Samuel understood that leadership was not about control, but about service. He motivated his team by acknowledging effort, encouraging balance, and creating a space where people felt valued. Productivity improved, but more importantly, morale increased. Samuel saw firsthand how kindness strengthened motivation. When people feel respected, they naturally want to do better. Outside of work, Samuel volunteered at a local community center on weekends. He mentored young people who struggled with self-doubt, academic pressure, and fear of failure. Many of them felt invisible and overwhelmed. Samuel shared his own experiences honestly, explaining that failure does not define a person, but how they respond to it does. He encouraged them to be kind to themselves, to stop comparing their journeys with others, and to focus on steady progress. One student in particular deeply impacted Samuel. The young man was on the verge of quitting school, convinced he was not good enough. Through regular conversations, Samuel helped him rebuild confidence. Months later, the student returned with improved grades and renewed hope. That moment reminded Samuel that kindness multiplied when shared. Motivation returned not as ambition, but as purpose. As years passed, Samuel's life slowly transformed. His career stabilized, his confidence grew, and his relationships deepened. Yet he remained grounded. He never forgot the difficult days, using them as reminders to stay humble. He continued practicing kindness not because it benefited him, but because it defined him. He learned that motivation rooted in compassion lasts longer than motivation driven by ego. The city around Samuel remained busy and imperfect, but small changes were visible. His workplace culture became more supportive. His team members adopted his leadership style. The community center expanded its programs. These changes were not dramatic, but they were real. Samuel realized that the world changes not through grand gestures, but through consistent actions repeated daily. There were still days when Samuel felt tired and unmotivated. On those days, he reminded himself that rest is not weakness and that kindness includes being gentle with oneself. He learned to balance effort with self-care, understanding that long-term motivation requires sustainability. Success, he realized, was not about constant growth, but about meaningful growth. The lesson of Samuel's journey is simple yet powerful. You do not need extraordinary talent or perfect circumstances to live a meaningful life. Kindness and motivation are choices available to everyone, every day. Kindness keeps you connected to others, and motivation keeps you moving forward. Together, they create resilience, purpose, and inner strength. If you are watching this story and feeling tired, discouraged, or invisible, remember this: your effort matters, even when progress feels slow. Your kindness matters, even when no one notices. Keep going, stay kind, stay motivated. One day, you will look back and realize that by lifting others and refusing to give up, you quietly built a life that truly mattered.